Got a new build on itch.io right now. Feedback is always welcome. Hello everyone and welcome to this week's Game Devlog on The Stars Our Destination, a turn-based strategy flight game. We're going to organize things a little differently this time, and tackle the changes from mode to mode due to the amount of small things and big things I put in this week. Let's get into it. Let's start with the easy one. The work done in the character select is visual. The skybox rotates to make it more interesting than a static background, the cursors are no longer cubes, and the stats are now actual blocks instead of sliders that you could actually fiddle around with. Again, nothing too drastic, for now anyway. Here's where the meat is. Finally updated the rest of the strategy screen UI to the rectangle sprite to make things more consistent. The health now updates with the ship's health, and I gave the player the option to hide the menu to see the entire map or anything that might be behind the actual menu. More importantly is the background. Everything moves now and just isn't a PNG. Getting the stars moving was easy. It just took some rendering offset magic, and the renderer just reuses the star wrapping so that I don't have to animate or add any special logic to make sure it switches position or something. The nebula was a little tricky. I had to make a distortion shader to get that working. And the problem with trying to make shaders for 2D objects is that the majority of shader code you're gonna find is for 3D objects. Even harder if you're a glutton for punishment and you don't want to use shader graph and prefer to get some metaphorical grime under your metaphorical fingernails. Anyway, I found a basic template for a regular 2D shader and I built upon that with the distortion shader source code from Shader Lab. And I made a few more edits with my relatively limited knowledge of shaders to get it moving like a wave. Granted, it's not moving all of it, but it works. Plus, I'm always worried about too much movement, because if you have a lot of movement, that could lead to a lot of distractions for the player. Let me know what you think. The other equally important part was to make a tutorial. I had a control screen in the same vein as the original Star Fox where the player would just play around with the controls until they're ready, but I made that a while ago and I made improvements since then. Plus the lower resolution always bugged me. Now it's more interactable with a free range level and a UI that's showing which buttons you're pressing. After they've shot, boosted brakes, special move, barrel roll, somersaults, U-turn, the text will say press start, and then they will begin. And this is to make sure the player will know what they can do. Generally in tutorials it's better if the player figures out the controls for themselves, while at the same time not strictly telling them how to do it, at least to me. The other big edit was fixing a little bug with the beam enemy. After the player would kill the beam enemy, the beam would still keep going just up and down. The mission would be complete and the enemy would register as dead and wouldn't move anywhere, but it's inconsistent. I've had a delegate in the enemy base just for these kinds of things, which is used for all the enemies, but if the enemy has some exclusive components or functions, I could add that to the delegate, and it won't conflict with any of the other enemies. In this case, it's stopping the particle system and sending the animation to an empty end state just to be safe. Now it's consistent. There are other bits of polish that didn't warrant a section, like a better font, reticle not showing during contextual animations, and camera bug fixes. I plan on getting it ready for submissions for a few conventions in the future. I have more polished tasks in my notebook, and I plan on incorporating tasks based on feedback from people who might be interested. Wink, wink. Either way, that'll be it for this week. Subscribe or join the Discord server if you like what I'm doing. Let me know if you have any questions or feedback. Take care of yourselves and have a good week.